Hey, it's Abby from Just a Girl on Her blog, and I just wanted to show really quickly how I edit my photos in Photoshop. I know Photoshop has a lot of buttons and can seem a little intimidating or confusing, but I have found that once I have my process down, I can pretty much do the same thing for every photo. So it is just really easy to repeat it. So I'll show you the process that I use to edit when I'm editing interior photos of my house. So this is a photo from my home office, and this has a couple different issues going on here. You can kind of tell that there's light coming from this side over here because this side is lighter and this side is darker. And there's also light coming from straight on so that these windows are almost blown out already. So we don't want to brighten those up too much. So it's pretty rare in a house to have perfect, even, beautiful lighting. And sometimes we want to keep those shadows, but sometimes we need to even it out a bit more. So I'll show you a couple of the ways that I do that. So the first thing I usually do is go over to the levels and I click that and I just bump this up a little bit just to give it some contrast and definition. The next thing I typically work on is the brightness. So here is where some of that lighting gets tricky, and I do a couple things to try to even it out a bit. So I open a brightness layer and I bump it up just a little bit. I want to bump this so that this side is looking the way I want it. So that's about all I'm going to do. Maybe I even take it down a little bit to about an 8. Now these got even more blown out and I don't want them to look like that. So I can undo just that part of the brightness. If I come over here and first I will click on my little paintbrush tool and then I'll swap these so that the black is on top. And then I just kind of paint over the areas where I want to negate that brightness that I just added to the photo. So anything that's looking a little bit blown out to me, I'm just going to go over that and kind of paint it. And you can see over here, I know it's really little, but you can see kind of where it's black. Those are the areas that I painted over and took that brightness away. So that's just a quick little trick to edit part of the photo, which can be a really helpful tool. Now I want to keep going. This side is looking bright enough, but this side is still looking a little bit dark to me. So I'm just going to open up a new brightness layer and try to get kind of that middle section to the right and to the right a little bit brighter. So I'll put my cursor kind of where I want it. And now this side is way too bright, but this side is looking better. So kind of similar to what we just did, I'm going to first reverse the entire layer. So to do that on my Mac, I push Command I. I imagine it's probably Control I on a PC, and you can see it took the brightness away, and over here my whole block is black. So now I just want to color in the parts that I want to have that brightness. So if I'm adding the brightness back in, I swap these again. I want my white on top, and I still have my little paintbrush tool here, and I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, and then I'm just going to paint over the parts that I want to get a little bit brighter. And again, I can use this little block over here as my guide to see what I've done and what I haven't. So I'm just going to fill this in really quick. I'm not going to be exact because this is just a demonstration, but so you can see I'm going to fill in anything in the middle there that I was able to brighten up this side. And maybe even over here by the door, we could add one more brightness layer, bump it up a little bit, maybe even a little bit more than that. And then again, reverse the layer, Command I, and kind of paint in over by the door a little bit to make it nice and bright. So that is kind of how I even out kind of awkward lighting situations and make the whole photo look bright and cheerful. Then I usually just bump up my vibrance a little bit so that everything pops, and bump up the saturation just a touch. You don't want to mess with saturation too much or it will look weird. And then again, to make things pop, I like to go over here and use this triangle, which is the sharpen tool. And then things that I really want to kind of bring out a little bit more, I'll just click on those. And it just, I don't know, kind of defines them a little bit and helps them to pop. One final trick that I wanted to show you. So let's say that these little aqua jars aren't quite looking as aqua as I would like them to. I want them to pop a little bit more. So what I do for that is I will go over to color balance, and then I will use the color sliders and get those as kind of as aqua as I want them. So let's just get them to there. You notice it did that to my whole photo. So I don't want it done to the whole photo. So I'll just reverse the layer like we did with the brightness. So Command I, that undoes it. And then I use, again, my little paintbrush tool with the white on top. And I color in those areas where I want that extra kind of oomph and color there to pop a little bit more. And now let's say, oh no, I like overdid it a little bit and that's too much. I can just go up here and tone it down with the slider and get it exactly where I want it. Okay, so that is looking pretty good to me. That's pretty much all I do to most of my photos to get them ready to go on my blog. So now I need to save them. And I want to do this in such a way, I want to save this version. So if I need to come back and edit it some more, I can. So I'll do that first. And I do that by going to File, Save As. And we're just going to save it to the desktop for these purposes. And I'll just call this Best Built-in Unit. And so I'll save that. And then I want to save a version that I'm going to upload to my blog and use. So to do that, to make it a smaller file size so it doesn't bog down my blog, I'll go to File, Export, and choose Save for Web. And then it will bring it up for me here. And I changed this image size here. I always do the long side at 1020 pixels and the short side at 680. So that resizes it for me, makes it a little bit smaller. And then I push save. And again, we'll go to the desktop and save it there. And that one will be ready to upload to my blog so that it won't bog it down. So it's just really quick. It's not too intimidating. I just use that same process and get my photos from out of the camera and get them ready to go onto my blog.